The blueprint spread across my drafting table like a patient on an operating table, waiting for surgery. At 2:47 a.m., the lines and measurements should have been my only concern, but Vivienne's perfume still lingered in our basement office, the expensive stuff she only wore for special occasions. Problem was, we hadn't had a special occasion in months. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel, so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Sawyer Kincaid, 37 years old, and I design homes for people who actually want to live in them. Unlike my own marriage, my architectural projects have solid foundations. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sketched support beams while my wife systematically demolished everything we'd built together. The front door slammed upstairs. Vivienne was home from another networking event at Pulse, the upscale nightclub where she managed PR. Her heels clicked across our hardwood floors like a countdown timer. I glanced at the laundry basket beside my desk. A club wristband peeked out from between her designer clothes, along with a men's cologne scent that definitely wasn't mine. "Sawyer?" Her voice carried down the stairs, sharp and impatient. "Are you still down there brooding over your little drawings?" I rolled up the blueprint slowly, deliberately. "Just finishing up some work, Viv. You know, that thing I do to pay for your lifestyle." She appeared at the bottom of the stairs, still dressed for war in a black cocktail dress that cost more than most people's rent. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, makeup flawless despite the late hour. Vivienne Rojas had always been magnetic, the kind of woman who commanded attention when she walked into a room. Now she commanded it like a general leading troops into battle. "Don't start with me tonight," she said, crossing her arms. "I'm tired of your passive-aggressive comments about my work. If you hate my life so much, maybe you should just leave." There it was, the invitation I'd been waiting for without realizing it. I stood up, brushing eraser shavings off my jeans. "Interesting choice of words. Your life, not our life." "You know what I mean." She turned away, already dismissing me. "I'm going out with Ryan tomorrow night. Chloe's organizing a group thing at the club. Don't wait up." Ryan Palmer, her supposed best friend, who happened to be a 29-year-old DJ with abs and the emotional depth of a puddle. I'd watched him work his way into our social circle like a virus, all charm and carefully calculated spontaneity. The way Vivienne's eyes lit up when she talked about him made my stomach turn. "Have fun at your networking event," I said, my voice flat as the blueprints on my desk. After she went upstairs, I sat back down and tried to focus on my work. The coastal New England town where we lived was experiencing a building boom, and my firm had 3 major projects in development. The irony of designing dream homes while my own life crumbled wasn't lost on me. That's when I saw it. Vivienne's tablet, abandoned on the side table where she'd tossed it after checking her social media. The screen was still lit, notifications pinging softly. She'd forgotten to lock it again, a habit that had never bothered me before because I'd never had reason to look. Now I had reasons, lots of them. The text thread with Chloe was right there on the screen. Chloe Bates, Vivienne's close friend and social media influencer, the kind of person who documented her breakfast for Instagram stories. Their conversation was a masterclass in betrayal. Chloe: "Did you tell Sawyer you're staying at mine tomorrow night? Ryan's so excited about finally having the whole evening with you." Vivienne: "He doesn't suspect anything. Sawyer's been so buried in his work, he barely notices I exist." Chloe: "Good. Ryan showed me the hotel room he booked. Very romantic. You deserve this, babe. Sawyer's been taking you for granted for years." Vivienne: "I know. I just feel bad sometimes. But Ryan makes me feel alive again. Like I matter." Chloe: "You do matter. And if Sawyer can't see that, it's his loss. Ryan worships you." My hands were steady as I scrolled through more messages. Weeks of planning, lies, and elaborate cover stories. Hotel reservations, excuses about girls' nights and work events, detailed discussions about what to tell me when I asked questions. The basement suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in. I'd been living with a stranger, sharing a bed with someone who discussed deceiving me like it was a hobby. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was how stupid they thought I was. How easily they assumed I'd swallow their stories. I took screenshots of everything, not for legal reasons. We didn't have kids or complicated assets to fight over. I took them because I wanted to remember this moment, this clarity. The moment I stopped being a victim and started being something else entirely. Upstairs, I could hear Vivienne moving around our bedroom, probably selecting tomorrow night's outfit for her romantic evening with Ryan. The shower started running. She was washing off her guilt before bed, preparing for another day of lies. I walked through our house, my house really, since I'd designed it and my business had paid for it, and started making mental notes. Everything had to be perfect. No mistakes, no emotional outbursts, no dramatic confrontations that would give her ammunition to use against me later. In our bedroom, I opened the closet and began making piles. My clothes, my personal items, my books, my tools, everything that belonged to me and only me. The shower was still running. Vivienne always took long showers, especially after nights at the club. She said it helped her unwind. I worked quickly and quietly, filling garbage bags and boxes with my entire life. 37 years of existence reduced to containers that would fit in my truck. The important stuff, my drafting equipment, my computer, my project files, went into protective cases. By the time she turned off the water, I was nearly finished. I could hear her humming in the bathroom, probably thinking about tomorrow night's plans with Ryan. The sound made my skin crawl. I left one thing on the kitchen counter, a note written on my business letterhead, because even in betrayal, I maintained professional standards. Vivienne, you're absolutely right. I should leave. Consider it done. Don't contact me. I'll be in touch through my lawyer about dividing our assets. Since you've made it clear this is your life and not ours, you can have the house. I'll be taking everything that's actually mine. Thanks for the clarity. Sawyer P.S. Tell Ryan he left his cologne on your clothes again. Might want to be more careful about that. I loaded my truck in 3 trips, working by the light of our porch lamp. Mrs. Fenwick, our elderly neighbor, was probably watching from her window. She saw everything that happened on our street and remembered it all. By tomorrow afternoon, half the town would know I'd moved out in the middle of the night. Perfect. Let them talk. The last thing I took was my original blueprint for our house, the one I'd drawn when Vivienne and I were still pretending we had a future together. I rolled it up carefully and placed it in my truck. Someday, I might build another house, but it would be for someone who actually wanted to live in it with me. As I drove away, I saw Vivienne's silhouette in our bedroom window. She was probably wondering why she could hear a truck engine outside at 3 a.m. In a few minutes, she'd discover the empty closets and the note. She'd call me, probably, expecting to negotiate or explain or manipulate her way back to the status quo. But I was done being manageable, done being the reliable husband who paid the bills and asked no questions and pretended not to notice when his wife came home smelling like another man's cologne. My phone started buzzing before I reached the end of our street. Vivienne's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then turned the phone off entirely. The real work was just beginning. Wes Murphy's garage smelled like motor oil and possibility. My childhood friend had converted the space above his auto shop into a surprisingly comfortable apartment, complete with a fold-out couch that would serve as my temporary headquarters. At 42, Wes still had the same easy grin he'd worn in high school, though his hairline had retreated and his waistline had expanded. He handed me a beer and settled into his recliner like we were just hanging out on a normal Tuesday night. "So," he said, popping open his own beer, "want to tell me why you're moving in at 4 a.m. with everything you own packed in garbage bags?" I pulled out Vivienne's tablet and showed him the screenshots I'd saved. Wes read through them slowly, his expression shifting from curiosity to disgust to something that looked like pride. Holy shit, Sawyer. She really wrote all this down, like documented her whole affair in text messages? Every detail. Hotel reservations, cover stories, even discussions about what a terrible husband I am. I took a long drink of beer. The best part is how they think I'm too stupid to figure it out. What are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? The old Sawyer would have confronted Vivienne directly, demanded explanations, maybe even tried to work things out through counseling or compromise. The old Sawyer had believed in fair fights and second chances, and the basic decency of people he loved. The new Sawyer had learned better. I'm going to let her dig her own grave, I said. Then I'm going to hand her the shovel. My phone had been buzzing all night. 17 missed calls from Vivienne, 12 from Chloe, and even 3 from Ryan, probably wondering why his girlfriend's husband had suddenly vanished. I finally turned it on and listened to the voicemails. Vivienne's progression through the stages of manipulation was textbook perfect. First came confusion. Sawyer, where are you? Your clothes are gone. Call me back. Then anger. This is ridiculous. You can't just disappear without talking to me. We're adults. Then bargaining. I know you're upset about something. Let's discuss this rationally. I'm sure we can work it out. Finally, desperation. Please call me back. I'm worried about you. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Just come home so we can talk. Not once did she admit to the affair. Not once did she acknowledge that I might have discovered her lies. Even caught red-handed, she was trying to control the narrative. Chloe's messages were more direct. Sawyer, Vivienne is freaking out. What the hell is going on? Call her back right now. Her final voicemail was pure threat. If you hurt my friend, you'll regret it. She doesn't deserve this. Ryan's calls were the most interesting. His voice carried a note of panic that told me everything I needed to know about how much he had to lose. Hey man, Vivienne's looking for you. She's really upset. Maybe you should call her back. I'm sure whatever's wrong, you guys can work it out. I deleted all the messages without responding. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them start making mistakes. The next morning, I drove to my office and called my lawyer. Janet Morrison had handled the legal work when I started my architecture firm, and she'd been straight with me about everything from contracts to liability insurance. I trusted her to be straight with me about this too. I want to separate from my wife, I told her. Cleanly and quickly. No drama, no fighting over assets. I just want out. Any particular reason for the sudden decision? Janet asked. She was 60-something and had seen every variation of human stupidity in her 4 decades of practice. She's having an affair. I have documentation. Do you want to use that in the proceedings? Sometimes infidelity can affect asset division depending on the circumstances. I thought about it for exactly 2 seconds. No, I don't want this to be about the affair legally. I have other plans for that information. Janet was quiet for a moment. Sawyer, whatever you're planning, make sure it's legal. Revenge fantasies can turn into real legal problems very quickly. Don't worry, I said. Everything I'm planning is perfectly legal. I'm just going to give people accurate information and let them draw their own conclusions. After hanging up with Janet, I called my project manager, Nina Torres. At 31, Nina was the most organized person I'd ever met, with an MBA and the kind of attention to detail that made complex construction projects run smoothly. She also had a network of contacts throughout our small coastal town that rivaled the NSA. I need you to do some research for me, I told her when she arrived at the office. Quietly and carefully. What kind of research? Nina's dark eyes were sharp with curiosity. I want to know everything about Ryan Palmer's business arrangements. Who he works with, who he owes money to, what kind of reputation he has in the club scene. Also, I want to know about Pulse's financial situation and Vivienne's role there. This is about your marriage, isn't it? Nina had always been direct. My marriage is over. This is about making sure certain people understand the consequences of their choices. Nina nodded slowly. How deep do you want me to dig? All the way to bedrock. And Nina? If anyone asks, you're researching potential business partnerships. We're always looking for new opportunities, right? Absolutely. I'll have a preliminary report by tomorrow. That afternoon, I drove to the Harbor Light, the dive bar where half the town conducted its unofficial business. The owner, Pete Kowalski, had been serving beer and collecting gossip for 30 years. If you wanted to know anything about anyone in our little coastal community, Pete's bar was the place to start. I ordered a beer and a burger and settled in to listen. It didn't take long for the conversation to turn to my sudden disappearance. Apparently, Mrs. Fenwick had been busy. Heard Sawyer Kincaid finally had enough of his wife's club scene, said Tom Bradley, a local contractor who'd worked on several of my projects. About time, if you ask me. That woman's been running around town like she's single for months. She's not that bad, offered Sarah Chen, who worked at the bank. Maybe they just grew apart. Happens to lots of couples. Growing apart is one thing, said Pete, wiping down glasses with practiced efficiency. But when a man packs up and leaves in the middle of the night, there's usually more to the story. I kept quiet and let them speculate. Small towns were like echo chambers. Rumors bounced around until they became accepted truth. The key was making sure the right rumors got started. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Chloe. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks on Main Street in 1 hour. I smiled and typed back, Sorry, who is this? Don't play games, Sawyer. You know exactly who this is. 1 hour. I don't meet with people I don't know. Have a nice day, she called immediately. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her increasingly frantic message. Listen, you asshole, I know you're getting these messages. Vivienne is my best friend and I'm not going to let you destroy her life because you're having some kind of midlife crisis. Call me back or I'm going to make your life very difficult. I forwarded the voicemail to my own email account, then blocked Chloe's number. Documentation was everything. Every threat, every lie, every attempt at manipulation. I was keeping records of all of it. That evening, I returned to Wes's garage apartment and found Nina's preliminary report waiting in my email. She'd been thorough, as always. Ryan Palmer was deeper in debt than a first-year college student. His DJ business was barely breaking even. He owed money to several club owners, and his expensive lifestyle was funded entirely by credit cards and loans. More interesting, he'd been skimming money from event promotions, keeping cash payments for himself instead of reporting them to his business partner. Pulse was struggling too. The club had lost several major clients in recent months, and there were rumors about unpaid bills and staff turnover. Vivienne's job was less secure than she'd led me to believe. Most interesting of all, Ryan had been bragging to people about his rich girlfriend, who was going to help him start his own club. Apparently, he'd been telling people that Vivienne was planning to invest her divorce settlement in his business ventures. I leaned back in Wes's recliner and smiled. They weren't just having an affair, they were planning to steal my money to fund their future together. The betrayal was even deeper than I'd realized. My phone rang. Vivienne again. This time, I answered. Sawyer, thank God. Where are you? I've been worried sick. Her voice was perfect, just the right mix of concern and confusion. If I hadn't seen the text messages, I might have actually believed her. I'm fine, Viv, just taking some time to think. Think about what? I don't understand what happened. Did I do something wrong? The performance was flawless. She genuinely sounded like a confused wife whose husband had inexplicably vanished. I almost admired her skill. I found your tablet, I said simply. The silence stretched for 10 full seconds. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller, more careful. What do you mean? I mean, I read your text messages with Chloe, all of them, including the ones about Ryan and the hotel room and how stupid I am for not noticing what's been going on. Another pause. Then, Sawyer, I can explain. No need. You explained everything perfectly in those messages. You deserve to feel alive. You deserve someone who worships you. You deserve a life that doesn't include me. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And you know what? You're right. You do deserve better, so I'm giving you the chance to have it. Come home. Please. We can work this out. I am home, Viv. This is my home now. You can have the house, the mortgage, and all the memories. I'm done. I hung up and turned off the phone. Tomorrow the real work would begin. Tonight I was going to have another beer with my oldest friend and plan the systematic destruction of everyone who'd tried to destroy me. The old Sawyer was gone. The new one was just getting started. Nina's full report arrived at 6 a.m., along with a coffee that suggested she'd been up most of the night. Her research skills would have impressed the FBI. She'd uncovered financial records, social media posts, and business connections that painted a complete picture of Ryan Palmer's precarious empire. He's not just broke, Nina explained, spreading documents across my desk. He's actively stealing from his business partner, Eli Rodriguez. Look at these event receipts. The numbers told a clear story. Ryan had been pocketing cash from private parties and corporate events, reporting lower attendance figures to Eli while keeping the difference for himself. Over 6 months, he'd stolen nearly $15,000 from their partnership. There's more, Nina continued. I talked to some people in the club scene. Ryan's been telling everyone that his investor girlfriend is about to bankroll a new venture. He's already put deposits down on equipment and signed a lease for a space downtown. Using what money? That's the interesting part. He's been using Vivienne's credit cards. I found the applications. He's listed as an authorized user on 3 of her accounts. I studied the paperwork. Vivienne had been funding Ryan's business dreams with credit cards in her name, probably convinced that our divorce settlement would cover the debt. They'd been planning this for months, systematically positioning themselves to steal my money and start fresh together. What about Chloe? I asked. Nina's smile was predatory. Chloe Bates is a social media fraud. She's been buying followers using fake engagement services and lying to brands about her influence metrics. I have screenshots of her real analytics versus what she reports to sponsors. She's committed actual fraud, the kind that could result in criminal charges. And Pulse? Struggling. The owner, Ben King, has been looking for reasons to cut staff. Vivienne's position isn't as secure as she thinks, especially if someone were to provide information about her extracurricular activities. I leaned back in my chair, processing the intelligence. My enemies had handed me enough ammunition to destroy them 3 times over. The question was how to use it most effectively. Nina, I need you to prepare 3 separate packages of information. One for Eli about Ryan's theft, one for Ben King about Vivienne's misuse of company resources for personal affairs, and one for the brands that sponsor Chloe about her fraudulent metrics. When do you want me to send them? Not yet. First, I want to give them a chance to dig themselves deeper. That afternoon, I drove to the construction site where my crew was building luxury condominiums overlooking the harbor. The project was my biggest contract of the year, and the work was progressing ahead of schedule. Standing among the half-built structures, I felt a familiar sense of satisfaction. This was what I did well. I built things that lasted. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Ryan. We should talk. I typed back, about what? About Vivienne, and about being mature adults who can handle this situation reasonably. I'm handling it perfectly reasonably. I left. Problem solved. Come on, man. Don't be like this. Meet me for a beer tonight. Harbor Light at 8. I stared at the message for a long moment. Ryan Palmer wanted to meet me face to face, probably to gauge how much I knew and whether I could be managed. The old Sawyer might have avoided the confrontation, but the new Sawyer was curious to see exactly how stupid this man really was. Fine. 8 p.m. I arrived at the Harbor Light early and positioned myself at the bar where I could see the entire room. Pete nodded when I walked in. I'd become a regular since moving out, and he'd started saving my preferred stool. "Expecting company tonight?" Pete asked, sliding a beer across the bar. "Someone who thinks he's smarter than he actually is." Ryan arrived exactly on time, dressed in his usual uniform of expensive jeans and a designer shirt that probably cost more than most people's car payments. He was handsome in a generic way, the kind of looks that photographed well for social media but didn't have much substance behind them. At 29, he still carried himself like a college athlete who expected the world to accommodate his presence. He slid onto the stool next to me and ordered a craft beer that Pete didn't carry. "Just give me whatever's good," he said, with the kind of smile that was supposed to be charming. "So," Ryan said after Pete delivered his beer, "this is awkward." "Only if you make it awkward. Look, Sawyer, I want you to know that I never meant for things to happen this way. Vivienne and I, it just kind of developed naturally. We have a connection, you know?" I took a slow sip of my beer, studying his face. He actually seemed to believe what he was saying. In his mind, he was the romantic hero who'd rescued a neglected wife from an inattentive husband. "A connection," I repeated. "Is that what you call it?" "She's an amazing woman. She deserves someone who appreciates her energy, her passion for life. No offense, but you two weren't exactly setting the world on fire." "No offense taken. You're absolutely right. We weren't setting anything on fire. We were just married." Ryan shifted uncomfortably. "Marriage is about more than just legal paperwork, man. It's about connection, about bringing out the best in each other. Vivienne lights up when she's with me." "I'm sure she does. Hotel rooms have that effect on people." His face flushed slightly. "It's not just physical. We understand each other. We have the same goals, the same vision for the future." "You mean the club you're planning to open with her money?" The flush deepened. "She told you about that?" "She didn't have to. I know about the credit cards, Ryan. I know about the deposits you've made and the lease you've signed. I also know about the money you've been stealing from Eli." Ryan's beer stopped halfway to his mouth. "I don't know what you're talking about." $15,000 over 6 months. Cash skimming from private events. Should I keep going, or do you want to explain how that's part of your connection with my wife? He set down his beer and turned to face me fully. "You've been investigating me?" "I've been protecting my interests, which, it turns out, was a smart move since you and Vivienne have been planning to steal my divorce settlement to fund your business ventures." "That's not stealing. That's investment. Vivienne believes in what we're building together. Vivienne believes in what you've told her you're building. Does she know about your debts? Does she know that you owe money to half the club owners in the state? Does she know that your business partner has no idea you're planning to leave him?" Ryan stood up abruptly, his charm finally cracking. "You know what your problem is, Sawyer? You're bitter. You can't stand that she chose someone else, so you're trying to sabotage what we have." "I'm not trying to sabotage anything. I'm just sharing information. What people do with that information is up to them." "You think you're so smart, don't you? With your little investigation and your dramatic exit. But you don't understand what Vivienne and I have. You never understood her at all." I stood up too, leaving money on the bar for both our drinks. "You're right, Ryan. I never understood that my wife was the kind of person who would plan to steal my money to fund her boyfriend's failing business. That one caught me completely off guard. It's not stealing. It's exactly stealing. And now that I know about it, I can protect myself accordingly." I started toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Ryan? You might want to have a conversation with Eli about those missing event receipts. I hear he's starting to ask questions." I left him standing at the bar, his face pale and his expensive beer untouched. Through the window, I could see him fumbling for his phone, probably calling Vivienne to report that their plan had been discovered. Perfect. Let them panic. Panicked people made mistakes, and I was counting on them to make several more before I was finished. My phone was ringing before I reached my truck. Vivienne's name flashed on the screen, and this time I answered on the first ring. "What did you say to Ryan?" Her voice was sharp with anger. I told him the truth about the credit cards, about the stolen money, about your plans to use my divorce settlement to fund his business ventures. That's not what we're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. And now that I know about it, I can make sure it doesn't happen. Sawyer, you're being paranoid. Ryan and I aren't trying to steal anything from you. Then explain the credit card applications. Explain the deposits he's made on equipment and real estate. Explain why he's been telling people that his investor girlfriend is about to make him rich. Silence. Then, where did you get this information? Does it matter? The point is, I have it, all of it. Financial records, business documents, witness statements, everything. You hired a private investigator. Her voice was flat with realization. I hired professionals to protect my interests, just like you hired Ryan to destroy my marriage. I didn't hire anyone to do anything. Ryan and I fell in love. These things happen, Sawyer. People grow apart. They find new connections. People also commit fraud. They steal from business partners. They lie to their spouses about their intentions. Should I keep going? Another pause. What do you want? I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. I want Ryan to understand that stealing has consequences. And I want everyone who helped you plan this betrayal to understand that their choices have consequences too. What are you talking about? Ask Chloe about her fake followers. Ask Ryan about Eli's missing money. Ask yourself whether Ben King is going to keep employing someone who uses company resources to conduct personal affairs. I hung up before she could respond. My phone immediately started buzzing with calls and text messages, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow, I would start delivering the packages Nina had prepared. Tonight, I was going to have a quiet dinner with my oldest friend and enjoy the knowledge that my enemies were finally beginning to understand exactly who they'd been dealing with. The old Sawyer had been reactive, defensive, always trying to preserve what he had. The new Sawyer was proactive, offensive, focused on taking away what they thought they deserved. It was a much better way to live. The annual Harbor Festival was our town's biggest social event, a weekend-long celebration that brought together everyone from the mayor to the local mechanics. Vendors lined the waterfront, local bands played on multiple stages, and half the population used the occasion to catch up on 6 months' worth of gossip. It was the perfect venue for what I had planned. I arrived early Saturday morning, ostensibly to check on the festival booth my architecture firm sponsored every year. Nina had designed an impressive display showcasing our recent projects, complete with scaled models and interactive presentations. But my real purpose was reconnaissance. I needed to see who showed up and how they positioned themselves. Mrs. Fenwick appeared at my elbow like a materializing ghost, carrying a cup of coffee and wearing her best festival outfit. At 73, she had the energy of someone half her age and the curiosity of a professional journalist. "Sawyer, dear, how are you holding up?" She patted my arm with genuine concern. "I've been so worried about you since the trouble started." "I'm doing well, Mrs. Fenwick. Better than I expected, actually." "Good, good. You know, I've been hearing some very interesting things around town lately." Her eyes sparkled with the anticipation of someone about to share premium gossip. "People are talking about your wife and that young man she's been seen with. People talk about lots of things. Indeed they do, and sometimes what they talk about turns out to be absolutely true." She leaned closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "I saw them together last week, you know, at that expensive restaurant downtown. Very cozy, very intimate. Not the kind of dinner you have with a friend." I nodded thoughtfully. "I appreciate you looking out for me, Mrs. Fenwick." "Oh, I'm not just looking out for you, dear. I'm looking out for the truth. And the truth has a way of coming to light, especially in a town this size." She was right, of course. In a community of 8,000 people, secrets had a half-life measured in days, not months. The key was making sure the right secrets surfaced at the right time. Around noon, Vivienne and Ryan made their grand entrance. They'd clearly coordinated their outfits. She wore a flowing sundress that photographed beautifully, while he sported the kind of casual but expensive look that suggested effortless style. They moved through the crowd like celebrities, stopping to chat with friends and pose for photos that would undoubtedly end up on social media. Chloe trailed behind them with her phone out, documenting everything for her various platforms. She was working hard to project the image of a successful influencer, but I could see the strain around her eyes. Word was already spreading about her fraudulent metrics, and several brands had quietly ended their sponsorship deals. I watched from a distance as they worked the crowd, noting who they talked to and how people responded. Some conversations were warm and genuine. Others were polite but brief. A few people turned away entirely, suddenly finding other places to be when the trio approached. The tide was already turning. People were choosing sides, and my side was winning. Around 2 o'clock, I made my move. I approached Ben King, the owner of Pulse, while he was judging the barbecue competition. Ben was a practical businessman who'd built his club's reputation on professionalism and reliability. He valued loyalty and had no patience for employees who created complications. "Ben, good to see you," I said, shaking his hand. "Great turnout this year." "Sawyer, I heard about you and Vivienne." "Sorry, man, these things are never easy." "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I thought you should know that Vivienne's been using company resources for personal matters, email accounts, client contacts, even company credit cards for expenses related to her affair." Ben's expression hardened. "Are you sure about this?" I handed him a folder Nina had prepared. "Documentation is all there. Receipts, email records, witness statements. I thought you'd want to know before it became a bigger problem." He flipped through the papers quickly, his face growing darker with each page. "Jesus Christ. She's been using our corporate account to book hotel rooms. Among other things. I'm not trying to cause problems for your business, Ben. I just thought you deserved to know what was happening on your payroll." "I appreciate this, Sawyer. I really do. This kind of thing can destroy a business's reputation if it gets out." "I understand completely. What you do with the information is entirely up to you." I left Ben studying the documents and moved on to my next target. Eli Rodriguez was manning the DJ booth for one of the smaller stages, playing background music while local bands set up for their performances. He was a thin, nervous man in his early 30s who'd always seemed overshadowed by his flashier business partner. "Eli, how's the music business treating you?" He looked up from his equipment with surprise. "Oh, hey, Sawyer. It's going okay, I guess. You know how it is." "Actually, I don't. But I've been hearing some concerning things about missing money from your events." Eli's hands stilled on the mixing board. "What kind of things?" "Cash receipts that don't match reported attendance, private parties where the numbers don't add up, that sort of thing." "Who told you about that?" I pulled out another folder, this one containing copies of Ryan's financial records and the evidence of his skimming operation. I had some research done for business purposes. This information came up as part of that process. Eli read through the documents with growing anger, his face flushing red as he realized the scope of Ryan's betrayal. That snake. I knew something was wrong with our books, but I couldn't figure out what. "Looks like he's been planning to leave the partnership anyway. I hear he's got big plans for a new club." "With my money," Eli said bitterly. "With money he stole from our business." "That's between you and him. I just thought you deserved to know what was happening." By 4 o'clock, the festival atmosphere had shifted. Ben King had pulled Vivienne aside for what appeared to be a very serious conversation near the food trucks. Eli had confronted Ryan at the main stage, their argument drawing curious stares from nearby festival goers. Chloe was frantically checking her phone, probably discovering that more of her sponsorship deals had evaporated. I found a spot near the beer garden and settled in to watch the show. Wes appeared beside me with 2 cold beers and a satisfied grin. "You've been busy today," he observed. "Just sharing information with people who needed it. Looks like your information is having quite an impact." We watched as Ryan stormed away from his confrontation with Eli, his face dark with anger. He headed straight for Vivienne, who was still deep in conversation with Ben. The reunion was not pleasant. Even from a distance, we could see the tension in their body language. "Think they're starting to figure out they're in trouble?" Wes asked. "I think they're starting to figure out that actions have consequences." Chloe joined their huddle, waving her phone frantically. The three of them formed a tight circle, clearly in crisis mode. Other festival-goers were beginning to notice the drama, conversation stopping as people turned to stare at the unfolding spectacle. Mrs. Fenwick materialized beside us again, practically vibrating with excitement. "Oh my, what a day this has turned out to be. Did you see Ben King's face when he was talking to your wife? I haven't seen him that angry since someone tried to pass a bad check at his club." "Sounds like there might be some workplace issues," I said neutrally. "Indeed, there might be. And did you see that young man Ryan arguing with his business partner? Very heated discussion, very public." Business partnerships can be complicated, especially when one partner has been stealing from the other, Mrs. Fenwick said with obvious relish. Word travels fast at events like this. The confrontation reached its climax when Vivienne broke away from Ben and Ryan, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She scanned the crowd until she spotted me near the beer garden, then marched over with the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose. "You bastard," she said loudly enough for half the beer garden to hear. "You planned this whole thing, didn't you? The timing, the information, everything." "I planned to attend our town's annual festival, yes, same as I do every year." "Don't play innocent with me. You've been systematically destroying everyone in my life." "I've been sharing accurate information with people who had a right to know it. What they do with that information is their choice." "You're trying to ruin me." "I'm trying to protect myself from people who were planning to steal my money and destroy my life. There's a difference." The beer garden had gone completely quiet, everyone straining to hear our conversation. Vivienne seemed to realize that she was creating exactly the kind of public scene that would fuel gossip for months to come. "This isn't over," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Yes, it is," I replied calmly. "It's been over for a long time. You're just now figuring that out." She turned and walked away, her festival outfit suddenly looking less elegant and more desperate. Ryan and Chloe fell into step beside her, the three of them forming a retreat formation as they headed for the parking area. The beer garden slowly returned to normal conversation levels, but I could feel the curious stares and hear the whispered speculation. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know that Sawyer Kincaid's wife had confronted him publicly at the festival, and everyone would have their own theory about what it meant. "Well," said Mrs. Fenwick with deep satisfaction, "that was certainly educational." "Festival's always full of surprises," I agreed. As the sun set over the harbor, I felt a deep sense of completion. Phase 1 of my plan was finished. Vivienne's professional life was in ruins, Ryan's business partnerships were destroyed, and Chloe's influencer career was collapsing. They'd been publicly humiliated in front of the entire town, and the gossip network would ensure that everyone knew exactly why. But I wasn't finished yet. Phase 2 would be more personal, more targeted, and much more final. The old Sawyer would have been satisfied with this level of revenge. The new Sawyer was just getting started. 2 weeks after the festival, I received the call I'd been waiting for. Vivienne's voice was different, smaller, desperate, stripped of the confidence that had once defined her. "Sawyer, we need to talk, in person. Please." "About what?" "About ending this. About finding a way to move forward that doesn't destroy both of us." I almost laughed. She still thought this was a negotiation, that she had something to bargain with. She still believed that the right combination of words could manipulate me back into being manageable. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone. Meet me tonight. The Seahorse Motel on Route 9, room 237. Come alone." The Seahorse Motel was a run-down establishment that rented rooms by the hour to people who had nowhere else to conduct their business. It was the kind of place where marriages went to fade, which made it perfect for what I had planned. Why there? Because it's private. Because we can talk without the whole town watching. Please, Sawyer, just give me 1 hour to explain everything. I agreed to meet her at 8 o'clock, then immediately called Wes and Nina. If Vivienne wanted to have a private conversation, I was going to make sure it was documented properly. You think she's planning something? Wes asked. I think she's desperate, which makes her dangerous. I want backup, and I want everything recorded. Nina nodded, already making notes. I'll set up surveillance equipment, audio and video, all legal and admissible. If she tries anything, we'll have proof. What about Ryan? Wes asked. Think he'll show up too? I'm counting on it. The Seahorse Motel looked exactly as seedy as its reputation suggested. Peeling paint, broken neon signs, and the kind of parking lot where people didn't make eye contact. I arrived 15 minutes early and spotted Nina's surveillance van positioned across the street, disguised as a utility vehicle. Wes was somewhere nearby, ready to intervene if things went sideways. Room 237 was on the second floor, accessed by an external staircase that creaked with every step. I knocked on the door and waited. Vivienne opened it wearing jeans and a simple sweater, the most casual I'd seen her dressed in months. Her makeup was minimal, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, more vulnerable, and completely exhausted. Thank you for coming, she said, stepping aside to let me enter. The room was standard motel horrible. Faded carpet, mismatched furniture, and the lingering smell of industrial disinfectant. Vivienne had arranged 2 chairs facing each other near the window, like a therapy session or an interrogation. So, I said, remaining standing, what did you want to explain? Everything. The affair, the money, the plans with Ryan, all of it. I'm listening. She sat down heavily, her composure finally cracking. It started innocently. Ryan was just a friend, someone who made me laugh when you and I were going through a rough patch. You were so focused on your work, so distant. I felt invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to become visible to someone else. It wasn't planned, it just happened. One conversation led to another, one drink led to more drinks. Before I knew it, we were involved. And the money? The credit cards, the business plans? Did those just happen too? Vivienne's face flushed. Ryan has big dreams. He's ambitious, creative. He just needed some financial support to get his projects off the ground. He needed my money to fund his projects. It would have been an investment, a partnership. When the club succeeded, you would have gotten your money back with interest. I stared at her in amazement. You actually believe that, don't you? You actually think stealing my divorce settlement to fund your boyfriend's failing business was some kind of favor to me? It wasn't stealing. It was exactly stealing. And it was fraud. And it was conspiracy. Should I keep going? Or do you want to explain how destroying my marriage was also supposed to benefit me somehow? Vivienne stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. I never meant to hurt you, Sawyer. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. I needed something more than what we had. What you needed was a divorce. What you chose was betrayal. I was scared. Scared of starting over, scared of being alone, scared of admitting that our marriage was over. Ryan made me feel like I could have a different life, a better life. And now? She turned back to face me, tears streaming down her face. Now I've lost everything. My job, my friends, my reputation. Ryan won't even return my calls since Eli threatened to press charges for the stolen money. I felt no satisfaction in her tears, no triumph in her confession. The woman crying in this seedy motel room was a stranger, someone who'd replaced the person I'd married without bothering to tell me. What do you want from me, Vivienne? I want you to stop. Stop sharing information about us. Stop destroying what's left of my life. I know I hurt you, and I know you want revenge, but please, I'm begging you. I have nothing left. You have exactly what you chose. You chose Ryan over me. You chose lies over truth. You chose theft over honesty. These are the consequences of those choices. I made mistakes. You made decisions. Deliberate, calculated decisions over a period of months. You didn't slip and fall into an affair, Vivienne. You planned it, funded it, and executed it. The only mistake you made was getting caught. The door opened behind me, and Ryan Palmer walked in like he was making a grand entrance. He'd clearly been waiting outside, probably listening to our conversation. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by the desperate energy of someone who'd run out of options. "Enough," he said, pointing at me. "You've done enough damage, Sawyer. Time to back off." I turned to face him calmly. "Ryan, I was wondering when you'd show up." "Vivienne called me. She said you were here trying to intimidate her into some kind of deal." "Actually, she was trying to intimidate me into stopping my legal and perfectly justified protection of my own interests." "Legal?" Ryan laughed bitterly. "You call stalking and harassment legal?" "I call sharing accurate information with relevant parties legal, which it is. You destroyed my business partnership. You got Vivienne fired. You ruined Chloe's career, all because your wife fell in love with someone else. I documented your theft from Eli. I provided evidence of Vivienne's misuse of company resources. I exposed Chloe's fraudulent business practices. All because you people thought you could steal from me and destroy my life without consequences." Ryan stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. "You think you're so smart, don't you? With your little investigation and your perfect timing. But you're just a bitter, vindictive asshole who can't handle losing." "I didn't lose anything worth keeping." "You lost her," Ryan said, gesturing toward Vivienne. "You lost the best thing that ever happened to you because you were too stupid to appreciate what you had. I lost a cheating wife and gained accurate information about her character. Seems like a fair trade to me." Ryan's control finally snapped. He lunged forward, swinging wildly at my face. I sidestepped easily. He was angry and sloppy, telegraphing his moves like an amateur. His momentum carried him past me, and he stumbled into the motel room's flimsy table. "Ryan, stop!" Vivienne shouted, but he was beyond listening. He came at me again, this time trying to tackle me around the waist. I grabbed his shoulders and used his own momentum to spin him around, pinning him against the wall with his arm twisted behind his back. "Let me go," he gasped. "Are you done?" I asked calmly. "Let him go, Sawyer," Vivienne pleaded. "This isn't solving anything." I released Ryan and stepped back. He turned around, his face red with exertion and humiliation. "You think this is over?" he panted. "You think you've won? I think I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish." Which was what? Destroying everyone who ever cared about her? Which was protecting myself from people who were planning to steal my money and ruin my life. Mission accomplished. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back to face them both. You know what the funny thing is? I would have given Vivienne a clean, quiet divorce if she'd just been honest with me. I would have split our assets fairly and wished you both well. All you had to do was tell the truth. "Sawyer?" Vivienne started. "But you chose lies instead. You chose theft and betrayal and conspiracy. You chose to treat me like I was too stupid to figure out what was happening. So I chose to show you exactly how smart I actually am." I opened the door and stepped into the hallway. "Enjoy your new life together, what's left of it." As I walked down the creaky stairs, I could hear them arguing behind me. Vivienne's voice was high and desperate, Ryan's angry and defensive. They were turning on each other, blaming each other for the disaster their lives had become. Perfect. Let them destroy each other. I was done destroying them myself. I drove home to Wes's garage apartment with a profound sense of completion. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts, probably Vivienne and Ryan trying to continue the conversation, but I ignored them all. The old Sawyer would have answered those calls, would have tried to find some way to make peace, would have convinced himself that forgiveness was the mature response. The new Sawyer knew better. Some betrayals were unforgivable. Some people deserved exactly what they got. And some victories were worth savoring. My enemies had been systematically destroyed, their lives reduced to the same rubble they'd tried to make of mine. They'd lost their jobs, their money, their reputations, and their future together. They had nothing left except the knowledge that they'd brought it all on themselves. It was enough. More than enough. It was perfect. 3 days after the motel confrontation, I received a call that would give me the opportunity to end this story exactly as it deserved to be ended. Ben King, the owner of Pulse, wanted to meet with me about a potential business opportunity. "I'm thinking about renovating the club," he explained over the phone. "Complete redesign, new layout, upscale the whole operation. After recent events, I need a fresh start, and I want to work with someone I can trust." We agreed to meet at his club that afternoon. It was a substantial project, exactly the kind of high-profile commission that could establish my firm as the premier architectural practice in the region. More importantly, it would put me in direct control of the space where Vivienne and Ryan had conducted much of their affair. The irony was delicious. I arrived at Pulse to find Ben waiting with blueprints and renovation plans spread across the bar. The club was closed for the day, giving us privacy to discuss the project in detail. As we talked about sightlines and traffic flow, I couldn't help but notice the booth where Vivienne and Ryan had probably shared countless intimate conversations. "I want to gut that entire section," Ben said, following my gaze. "New furniture, new layout, new everything. Too many bad memories associated with the old setup." I understand completely. We spent 2 hours going over the preliminary plans. The project would take 6 months and cost nearly $500,000, enough to keep my firm busy through the next year and establish my reputation as the architect who'd transformed the region's premier nightclub. As we were finishing up, Ben's expression grew serious. "Sawyer, I want you to know how much I appreciate what you did, bringing me that information about Vivienne's activities. A lot of people would have just minded their own business. I figured you had a right to know what was happening in your establishment." "Damn right I did. She was using company resources to conduct a personal affair, lying to clients about her availability, even charging personal expenses to the corporate account. That kind of behavior could have destroyed my business if it had gotten out publicly." "What did you decide to do about it?" "Fired her immediately, of course. No severance, no references, no nothing. She's lucky I didn't press charges for the misuse of company funds." I nodded thoughtfully. "Probably the right call. She tried to deny everything at first, claimed you were making it up out of spite. But the documentation you provided was ironclad. Credit card receipts, email records, witness statements. She couldn't argue with evidence like that. Evidence tends to speak for itself." "Indeed it does. And speaking of evidence, I heard that Ryan Palmer's business partner pressed charges for the money he stole. Eli finally got tired of being ripped off." This was news to me, but I kept my expression neutral. "Is that right? 15,000 in cash skimming, plus another 10,000 in fraudulent expense reports. Eli had been building a case for months, apparently. Your information just gave him the final pieces he needed." "Justice has a way of working itself out." Ben laughed grimly. "Ryan's looking at serious jail time if he's convicted. Grand theft, fraud, conspiracy. His lawyer's trying to work out a plea deal, but Eli wants his money back plus damages. Kid's going to be paying for his mistakes for years to come." We shook hands and agreed to move forward with the renovation project. As I left the club, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Not only had I secured a major contract that would establish my professional reputation, but I'd done it by taking control of the very space where my enemies had plotted against me. The symbolism was perfect. That evening, I was having dinner at the Harbor Light when Pete Kowalski slid into the booth across from me with a beer and a satisfied grin. "Heard you got the Pulse renovation contract," he said. "Congratulations." Word travels fast. In this town, word travels at light speed. Also heard that Ryan Palmer got himself arrested this afternoon. I looked up from my burger with genuine surprise. Arrested? Eli pressed charges for the stolen money. Police picked Ryan up at his apartment around noon. He's sitting in county lockup right now, waiting for his bail hearing. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate for him, maybe, but probably overdue if you ask me. Kid's been skating by on charm and good looks for too long. Time he learned that actions have consequences. Pete was right, of course. Ryan had spent his entire adult life assuming that his appearance and charisma would get him out of any trouble he created. He'd never learned to consider long-term consequences because he'd never faced any. Now, he was facing all of them at once. "What about Vivienne?" I asked. "Haven't seen her around town much lately. Word is she's been staying with her parents up in Portland, trying to figure out what to do next. Can't be easy, losing your job and your boyfriend in the same week." "Probably not. Of course, some people might say she brought it on herself." "Some people might say that." Pete finished his beer and stood up. "Well, I better get back to work. But Sawyer, I'm glad things worked out for you. You're a good man, and you deserved better than what she put you through." After Pete left, I sat alone in the booth and reflected on how completely the situation had reversed itself. 3 weeks ago, I'd been the betrayed husband, the victim, the man whose life was being systematically destroyed by people he'd trusted. Now I was the successful architect with a major new contract, while my enemies were facing criminal charges, unemployment, and social exile. The transformation was so complete it was almost surreal. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Chloe. We need to talk. It's important." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "I don't think we have anything to discuss. Please. It's about Vivienne. She's in bad shape, Sawyer. Really bad shape. That's unfortunate, but it's not my problem. She's talking about hurting herself. I'm scared for her." I felt a flicker of concern, then pushed it aside. Vivienne was a master manipulator who'd spent months lying to me about everything that mattered. If she was having Chloe send threatening messages about self-harm, it was probably just another attempt to control the narrative. If you're genuinely concerned about someone's safety, call the police or a crisis hotline. I'm not qualified to help with mental health issues. You're the only one who can stop this. You have all the power now. Please. I have exactly as much power as I've always had. The power to protect myself from people who want to hurt me. What Vivienne does with her life is her choice, just like the affair was her choice. She made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve to have her entire life destroyed. She made deliberate decisions over a period of months. She's experiencing the natural consequences of those decisions. That's not destruction. That's accountability. Chloe stopped responding after that, but I knew she'd probably try again. People like her never accepted that their actions had permanent consequences. They always believed that the right combination of guilt and manipulation could reset the situation back to their advantage. But I was done being manipulated, done being managed, done being treated like I was too stupid or too weak to protect myself from people who wanted to use me. The old Sawyer had been all of those things. The new Sawyer was something else entirely. I finished my dinner and drove back to Wes's garage apartment, where I spent the evening working on preliminary sketches for the Pulse renovation. As I drew new layouts and traffic patterns, I couldn't help but smile at the poetic justice of the situation. I was literally redesigning the space where my marriage had been destroyed, transforming it into something better and more functional. The metaphor was so perfect, it almost seemed planned. My phone rang around 10 o'clock. Vivienne's name appeared on the screen, and after a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Hello, Vivienne." "Sawyer." Her voice was barely above a whisper, hoarse and exhausted. "I heard about Ryan." "What about him?" "The arrest, the charges. He's looking at real prison time." That's between him and the legal system. You did this. You set all of this in motion. I documented crimes that had already been committed. What the authorities do with that information is their decision. He's talking about taking a plea deal, admitting to everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. Sounds like a practical choice. He's going to testify that I knew about the stolen money, that I helped him plan the whole thing. I sat up straighter in my chair. This was an interesting development. Did you? I knew he was having cash flow problems. I knew he was borrowing money from the business to cover personal expenses. But I didn't know he was stealing from Eli. But you did know he was using your credit cards to fund his business ventures. That's different. Those were my cards, my decision. Your cards, funded by money you were planning to steal from our divorce settlement. Silence. Then, he's going to destroy me, Sawyer. If he testifies that I was involved in the theft, I could face criminal charges too. That sounds like a problem you should discuss with a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't afford anything. I lost my job, I'm living with my parents, and my credit is destroyed because of the debt Ryan accumulated. Again, those sound like natural consequences of your choices. Please. The word came out as a sob. I'm begging you. Help me. Tell the prosecutors that I wasn't involved in Ryan's theft from Eli. You know I didn't know about that. What I know is that you spent months lying to me about everything that mattered. Why should I believe you're telling the truth now? Because I have nothing left to lie about. Because I've lost everything that mattered to me. Because I'm desperate. Desperation doesn't create credibility, Vivienne. If anything, it does the opposite. So you're just going to let me go to prison for something I didn't do? I'm going to let the legal system determine what you did and didn't do based on the evidence available. Just like I let the social consequences of your affair play out naturally based on the information people needed to make informed decisions. You're destroying me. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I hung up and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, I would start working on the detailed plans for the Pulse renovation. Next week, I would begin the process of transforming the space where my enemies had plotted against me into something better and more honest. It was the perfect ending to a perfect revenge. My professional life was thriving. My personal life was free from betrayal and manipulation, and the people who'd tried to destroy me were facing the full consequences of their choices. The old Sawyer had been reactive, always responding to other people's decisions and trying to preserve what he had. The new Sawyer was proactive, making his own decisions and building something better from the ruins of what he'd lost. It was a much better way to live. And as I fell asleep that night in Wes's garage apartment, surrounded by architectural plans and the tools of my trade, I knew that I'd never go back to being the old Sawyer again. The transformation was complete. The revenge was perfect. The story was over.